Oh, jeez. Okay. Hold on, I lost you. Rick made me. It's too quiet. I lost it. Okay, we're good. Nope.
Can we bow our heads? Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you in humble spirit. We praise you for all you do. Guide us towards your will in our decision making here, and protect those who continue to protect us. In Christ's name, amen.
Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, and as I say every meeting, rules of decorum are in effect. Excuse me. If you can't tell, my voice is a little scratchy. I'm getting over sinus problems, and the voice is still not agreeing with me. Not a bad thing sometimes, but all right. First two things we're going to do tonight, guys, is we've got a couple of proclamations. So the first one's going to be for the Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. Miss Patricia, is there anybody else with your group? If we'll bring everybody up. Huh? And they left me in charge of the technical stuff on this. So. Hello? It works. All right, guys. What we have today, this is Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. I'm going to read all of this, and then I'll probably tell you a little something after that concerning the Child Advocacy Center. Whereas the Children's Advocacy Center of Rockwall County was organized in 2016 and provides trauma-informed care for children in Rockwall County. And whereas the Children's Advocacy Center for Rockwall County is an interagency multidisciplinary partnership dedicated to providing intervention, hope, and healing for abused and neglected children. And whereas the Children's Advocacy Center for Rockwall County provides a safe, child-friendly environment where law enforcement, child protective services, prosecution, medical, and mental health professionals can collaborate with our own community to develop coordinated strategies to more effectively seek justice and promote healing for victims of child abuse. And whereas through a national effort, Rockwall County community members are encouraged to join together throughout the month of April to raise awareness for those children fallen victim to abuse and neglect. And whereas this effort will provide abused and neglected children in our community and around the country a chance for a safe and positive future. Now, therefore, it be resolved that I, Keith Short, Mayor of City of McLendon-Chisholm, Texas, do hereby recognize April as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month in the City of McLendon-Chisholm and urge all our citizens to join in a national effort to raise awareness and help prevent child abuse and neglect. Guys, the Child Advocacy Center of Rockwall County is near and dear to my heart. I have a daughter who is in her late 20s now, who's given me 4 of my grandchildren. When these child advocacy centers were in their infancy, my family had to use it for her. So I see the importance and the value of what they do. And I watch what it did for my child. And I'm going to tell you, if you ever have to use them, or if you know a family member that ever has the need, reach out to them because they are great. So I just want that to be known. Patricia, if y'all would come up here. Here's your proclamation. Yes, ma'am. Come on. Somebody's got cameras. I know. We got to back up. I'm used to it. Move over here. Do this, do that. Come on, guys. Everybody up. Come on, bud. You got it. All right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Cindy. Yes, ma'am. You can take all the time you want. This is about y'all. There you go.
All right, now can you hear me? Yes, great. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you all. You know, as we gather in a room like this, it's really easy to feel as though child abuse is miles and miles away from us. And the sad reality is that it rages in the background of our lives as a seemingly unreported epidemic. And, you know, I think when the center in Rockwall was first getting started, one of the biggest barriers we had was a belief that child abuse didn't happen in Rockwall County. And sadly it does. It cuts across every single socioeconomic boundary. It doesn't matter where you live. And so we're here in April, we go blue for kids. It's a way to stand up and make a difference, to stand in the gap, to let kids know that they're not alone, that someone sees them and someone believes them. That interagency, multidisciplinary approach makes sure that every kid that needs us gets every service recommended, and we make every effort to provide the highest quality of service available. So we thank you on behalf of the children whose faces you don't get to see. You know, last year through the center, we served 757 unduplicated clients. And we've been fully functional for 4.5 years. So efforts like this, when citizens of your community see that somebody is standing up and making a difference, those kids that are currently suffering in silence might have the courage one day to say something and to make a difference. And that's what we're there for. So your efforts in going blue, issuing the proclamation is terrific. We invite everyone to participate in the various activities that will be going on throughout the month of April. Monday's our kickoff event. And thank you for going blue and lighting the building blue. There'll be lots of different, you know, 6-foot ribbons and things all around the county. So in McLendon-Chisholm and a lot of businesses that you all support. So we just can't thank you enough for the support and demonstrating that you're willing to stand in the gap.
Can you do me a favor? Can you tell them, because I don't know if everybody that's here today knows about your building and how beautiful that is where you do have all the work that you do with kids.
Yes, so our facility came together. It was a lovely gift from the Seroptimus International based in Rockwall. And when our district attorney helped get this started, there was a need that was identified. We were basically given a lovely facility to operate out of. We started the first year we were fully functional with 179, and like I said, we've grown to serving 757. It's a lovely facility. The facility itself is a place that is safe, it's secure, it's confidential, and most importantly, it's child-friendly. When a child walks in, the first time they walk through our doors, they realize that I'm not alone. The fact that they see that things are designed for children and about children, they start to, it relieves some away, it strips away some of the stress that they feel about having to come and tell a very difficult story about what happened to them. It's not easy for a child to have to talk about abuse. It's not easy for an adult to talk about it, and for them to have to share pretty intimate details with an adult that they don't know. You want to create an environment that helps them feel like it's a place that they belong, where other children have been before them. Often children feel like they're the only ones and that people looking at them know what happened. So the services that we offer include everything from helping to strengthen the investigative process on the front end, where they come in for a forensic interview, all the way through mental health services, where we offer counseling to the primary victim, any siblings, and a non-offending caregiver, all free of charge to the family, and for as long as they need it.
Guys, if you ever get a chance to get in touch with Patricia or anybody that helps at the Advocacy Center to go over and look at it, you'll walk in there and there's a sense of peace when you walk in there. It's so beautiful with the trees and everything else. It's a very calming facility to walk into, and it's very beautiful on top of that.
I personally extend an invitation for each of you to come and take a tour.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, I get to do all those whereases again. All right, if I can get the Rosinis to come up. Yep, I'm still on. All right. Yes, ma'am. All right, here's our next one. Whereas the McLendon-Chisholm City Council recognizes the extraordinary contributions that Greg and Carol Rosini have made to the city of McLendon-Chisholm community as business owners, and whereas in March 2020, the Rosinis began talking with contractors in preparation for the building of a winery, and whereas in July of 2020, the groundbreaking ceremony was held for the construction of the winery, and whereas in July 29, 2021, the Rosinis, along with the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm, celebrated the grand opening of the Rosini Vineyards, and whereas Rosini Vineyards was spotlighted by North Texas Wine Country in their January 2022 newsletter, whereas Rosini's Vineyards participated in Rodeo Uncorked, where their, and I'm going to get these names wrong, Blanc de Bois, won a gold medal, Best in Texas and Best in Class at an international competition. Now, therefore, it is the great pleasure that I, Keith Short, Mayor of the City of McLendon-Chisholm, do hereby declare March 23rd, 2022, Rosini Vineyards Day, and invite McLendon-Chisholm citizens to celebrate the accomplishments of Greg and Carol Rosini and their newest commercial establishment in the city of McLendon-Chisholm. Come on up. And folks, I'm going to tell you something. If you've never been there, you need to go. I love to go over there when I have the time. Grab one side. I know. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
ma'am.
it.
Yes, ma'am. And if you guys want to say something, you're more than welcome to. Just push the little button on there, the red light comes on. There it is.
I want to thank everybody for this honor. It's been a long, hard sometimes road, but we're having a lot of fun with what we're doing, and we really appreciate the people of McLendon-Chisholm and all the support we've gotten. So look forward to seeing you all out there again real soon. Thank you again very much.
I'll make a motion to accept all the items on the current consent agenda.
Aye.
We'll move on to item number 7, 7.1, presentation by Consultation Officer. Mark, that will be you.
Turn your mic on.
Yeah, hit the little button.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. We want to share a little bit about what we're doing in code enforcement. So in the interest of time, we'll start with item number 1. Complaints from citizens regarding builder trash and debris. We're receiving more and more complaints from citizens who are having to pick up debris in the front yard and backyard. And it's becoming a problem. You can see by the photos that these job sites, you know, we are expected to see a certain element of dust, debris, and things like that, materials scattered about. And that's acceptable. But what's not acceptable is papers, cans, bottles, rags, food containers, and things like that. So that's one issue. Another issue is high grass. Mowing season's coming up. We get complaints from citizens regarding high grass and debris, high grass growing through their fence pickets. So that's another issue that we're going to be taking care of as well. The oh yeah, that's a problem. I don't know if y'all know that. That's the Rockwall ISD property over there. That behind that fence area is all that you see right there is dead. Pretty much a lot of dead trees and grass up to 6 feet tall. We appealed to Rockwall County. Let me go back. A complaint was actually submitted for high grass, and Jim Olinsky asked me. He said, "What can we do about this?" I said, "Look, as long as code enforcement doesn't receive a complaint, you guys can handle it." And you can see that they did handle it by that's what it looks like now. So there's about a 100-foot easement all the way down through there. It looks a whole lot better. The high grass is gone. It's not going to be an ongoing problem. So that's taken care of. And so the next item is complaints from citizens regarding builders working in violation of construction times. What that means is, you know, pursuant to the code, the ordinance says you can have construction and construction-related activities between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and no work allowed on Sunday. I can tell you with great certainty we have caught a number of people working before 7 o'clock and after 7 p.m. and also Sunday. Some of the citizens have been kind enough to provide photos and some awesome video. So we're going to be taking care of that as well.
So, Mark, are you altering your work hours to
Yes.
work on the weekends?
Sometimes I'll
then?
alter work hours, come in on Sunday, or come in after hours. I'm here before 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. So I'll go out to Sonoma Verde and travel around. And now these guys will see me. They'll be, you know, there may be a boom truck set out there for fixing to pour concrete. They'll see me and they'll stop. And so it's a good thing. So yes, sir.
Up with the heat and all that, do we issue a permit to operate outside those hours in relation specifically to concrete? Because sometimes they got to get that stuff in before it gets too hot, so it's not curing while it's still sitting there in the truck.
I'm sure we could. There's special circumstances, little gray areas where we can accommodate in that respect.
Okay.
So yeah, certainly, absolutely. Next thing is last year we had our first annual McLendon-Chisholm spring cleanup. It was a very successful event. We had volunteers from Rockwall County. Scott Smith provided us with 7 volunteers. We had members of the city council here. Chief was kind enough to provide volunteers from the department, and CWD actually gave us 30-yard roll-off dumpsters at no cost to the city, and they stored them out here. And if you came up and provided proof of residency, you could dump your spring cleaning items, things that were acceptable. And so it was a win-win. And while they were doing that, we had a crew that was working the highway, both sides, 205, all the way down to the church, Klutz Road, League Road, and of course FM 550 all the way down to City Hall. So it was a win-win. At the end of the day, it looked a lot cleaner. And so that's it. And this is my, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we're actually planning on doing that again April. I've got to get with Jason at CWD and schedule some kind of definitive date and time, probably the 23rd of April. But that's still in the works. So let's see, last on the list, saving the best for last. This is substandard structures. This is my favorite one. So when I came aboard at the city, it was tough to go around and look at some of these old structures that have been here for years and So we went to this property right here is an old dilapidated barn and decayed and, you know, harbors for rats and rodents and things like that. So we sent notification to the property owner, and as you can see, our efforts paid off because that's what it looks like now. Structure number 2, that's the old White House at 720 Highway 205. It is dilapidated, decayed, unsafe, broken windows, unsecured. There's an old barn that's set off in the distance if you look at that picture. And so we sent notification to the property owner, and you can see our efforts paid off. That's what it looks like now. Drastic improvement. So substandard structure number 3, this took a little bit longer than expected. Again, old structure, listing leaning walls, missing boards. And we sent notification to the property owner. In the middle of the process, it changed ownership. And the new owners came in. They were willing to work with us. They did a phenomenal job of cleaning this property up. It looked really good. They went above and beyond the call to take care of this for us. You can see that our efforts paid off with that. And saving the best for last, this is my favorite one. The old blue building. These guys really went above and beyond the call. This structure, it's pretty tough to look at on the outside, but the inside was really, really bad. You had walls that were leaning. The actual roof was caving in, electrical wires hanging down, things of that nature. So these guys came in, and when I say they took everything, they took the fence, everything on that property, the old dead trees, and to see what it looks like now, our efforts paid off. That is one of the most impressive substandard structures we had abated. And that's it. Any questions? You're welcome. All right. You bet.
I'll turn my mic on. One thing that I do want to do is I want to publicly acknowledge Mark for all the hard work he does. Not only as our first full-time code enforcement guy, but when a city employee goes above and beyond to the point that a citizen in our community feels the need to call City Hall and tell them what an extraordinary job they did, I feel it's worthy of recognition. We had a lady call Shelley and let her know that, was it raining? It was raining really bad. She was trying to grab a bunch of packages out at her mailbox and get them loaded up so she could get them to the house in the middle of one of our beautiful rainstorms. And Mark stopped and took the time to do all that and get her and her packages up to her house. And that's not the normal course of his job title or his responsibilities, but he did that without asking. He did that out of the kindness of his heart, and she was so impressed that she wanted to call the city and acknowledge the effort that he made to do that. And I just want to recognize him today for going above and beyond what he normally has to do to help one of our citizens. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Bring that to a full-time position is a really good,
Huh?
is a good choice to bring that to a
Yes.
full-time.
All right. The next one, Chief, you might as well get up there. It's discussion and necessary action regarding the sale, relocation, or demolition of the old City Hall.
How's everybody doing? So as you know, we've moved into the new station, and the old City Hall building is still in play down at the old 1250 Highway 205. Had some conversations with the state, and they're kind of now starting to ask a few more questions in regards to what we are going to do with the old City Hall building. I know we came back many months ago, and we got a few quotes on what it would cost to relocate that building to the City Hall property here. We had quotes anywhere from $15,000 to the highest being $30,000. And so it seems like the cost keeps going up. That's just building a subfloor because that building is mounted or framed up on a concrete slab, so they'd have to build a subfloor under it. The $15,000 cost was moving and all the permits required, and then there would be additional costs for whatever it took to subfloor that building out. So that was at the $15,000. The $30,000 mark was including all that. The thing is, it does not include setting up on a foundation basis. It's going to be put on cinder blocks, no water, no electricity, no remodel from the move. Those costs are just to get that thing moved from the current location to City Hall property. I know there's been some discussion here and there on the cost being a little too much, possibly to really do that when you start looking at the money of just moving it and then what it would take for us to get it remodeled, get electricity, water, whatever else we're going to do to it, that the city may spend their money better if in the future, if they decide to build some type of pocket park or something there in a little facility, we probably get more bang for our buck. So I'm coming for council just to kind of see your direction and what you would like for me to let the state know. The state has offered up that if the city is choosing not to move that building, then they will go ahead and put it on the demo list. The city does have the option to be able to sell the building. They paid for the dirt. The building is theirs, so the city could sell the building. Whoever was to purchase that building obviously would incur the cost of moving that building. So the city can actually sell the shell of that building if the city chose to do that.
There was some discussion at one point about maybe approaching the Tate folks down there off of the 548, I think it is.
I have not
and see if
approached
there was
them.
an interest on their part to maybe take the building, or we could sell it to them, or somehow make out an arrangement where they would take ownership. And because I know that on their property, they're trying to create some kind of a park
They
of
actually
sorts.
purchased the church from Heath and moved it to that
Okay,
location.
so that approach has not, you haven't
There was no direct
spoken
to go contact them. I know we were still talking about moving it, but that's why I'm here tonight.
Okay.
If council is going to give me direction to say, go talk to Tate Farms, if we put something out on the city website, that's something I'd have to get with Rick and see about putting it out there that the
Okay.
building is for sale. That's what I need you to tell me what direction you want me to take, and then I'll get on it.
Well, I think that's one item that we should take account for and make an approach with them, see if they're interested in purchasing the building or us donating the building to them.
How much of a time frame do we have on a decision for this?
I told Joanna that I would contact her later this week after council and kind of let her know the direction that we're choosing to take. I did, have a conversation with her saying, look, we've decided not to do anything. Can we sell the building? She
Mhm.
said, yeah. We have no concerns with it. We have no issues with the city choosing to sell that building or pay somebody else or somebody want it and then them relocate it. They're just going to come in and tear the slab up and get it ready. So I guess they're starting to work their way down 205 when it comes to demolition. So we just want to give them something. It's been sitting there for a little while, so I think it's time for us to go ahead and make a decision and move forward with it one way or another.
Well, I think probably the best recommendation and direction at the moment would be get with Rick and Michael to see what our legal obligations are as to whether we have, whether we have to sell it or whether we can donate it, depending on what the requirements are. And then, in the meantime, go ahead and get a hold of Evan Tate and them and see if they would even be interested in putting it out there with the old church, and because they're kind of building a little mini town type setup up there that they use for entertaining the general public.
Well, I think this will work too for any citizens that are watching. Somebody may be interested. I know back the old bank building that was there and all that was tore down, there were people that are interested. So maybe there'll be some people out there that want to reach out to us and say they're interested.
So
But if
are we certain we don't want to relocate it to this area?
With the cost that he's saying, I don't know that we want to bear tens of thousands of
Well, I
dollars
mean,
to move it over
that's
here.
my
You're
opinion.
looking
Yeah.
at $30,000, that's,
Yeah.
And I'm
I don't
sure-
think it's fair with the citizens' money, even though it's a beautiful building. Yes, it's still part of McLendon-Chisholm history, but we're talking a heck of a lot of money to move it over here when we don't really have an idea or a plan what we would do with it in the very near future. And I don't want to see it sit over here and just, for lack of a better term, go to rot. Until we
That's
got-
a lot of money to turn it into a portable building.
Right.
So that's basically what it would become until the city chose to do something with it.
Now, what I would ask is that with your discussion with Evan Tate, if it does move in the direction of possibly putting it over there, him entertaining the ability of putting maybe a plaque on it signifying the historical value of it within the city.
I'm sure that's a conversation that was the path we would take, that Evan Tate, they would come before council and probably have those
Right.
discussions.
Okay. Are you guys in agreement with that? All right, well, there's your direction, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, can you give us a little update on the MC egg drop before you?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. So as you know, on April 9th, we're doing the first MC egg drop. We actually, it's gonna be an egg drop. We will have a helicopter that will fly over our Easter egg hunt area out here in the back pasture. We have multiple age groups, so we won't have all kinds of kids, big kids, little kids running over each other. We're gonna do it in 3 different age groups. We'll have some antique classic cars that should be here. I think we're gonna have some antique tractors that are probably gonna make an appearance. We will have a couple food trucks once we get the approval from our health inspector. We'll have some food trucks. We've required parking. We've worked with Altura. They've approved us to use the field around City Hall here to be able to park in, so we got a lot of safer cross traffic instead of having to worry about crossing over 550. We've had probably close to 400 and some people that have responded saying they're going to attend. Now, you never know, but that's a pretty good sign that we may have a lot of people show up. It's a fun event. We'll have
Who's gonna be running?
running that event? Well, your city staff will be working in partnership, as everybody agreed with Sarah Naylor and Home and Heart. So just informed you, Shelley, Rick. I look forward to you on the night. Obviously, the firemen will be out there. We'll be there assisting, and we're going to have CERT. So we'll have our CERT team out there that will help start trying to recruit some citizens from this fire district, from the local area, to start building our in-house CERT team. So it'll be a fun event. It's a chance for parents to bring the kiddos out and let them go out and see a helicopter drop some eggs, and then everybody go out. There's some neat prizes in there. We do have some unique gifts or treasures, I guess, for adults to be able to hunt up. So it'll be a fun time.
What was the date on that?
April 9th.
So have you notified the sheriff for as far as?
So we've talked to them, let them know. Now that we've changed the parking situation, originally we were looking at parking across the way. Obviously, we're going to have certain work with the sheriff, but now we've been able to now reposition and not have to worry about any cross traffic on 550. But as usual, we'll have a deputy that'll come out and hang out with us. So it'll be fun.
And we need to get do we need to get the fields mowed?
We will. So we'll get that knocked down. We have a company that we've been using now for a couple of years, so we'll have them come out and knock that down. We're praying that the weather holds off and stays nice for that day. But it'll be a fun event. So pass it around. We're getting it pushed out there. So every so often we're trying to re-push it to get it out there. But we've got a lot of positive response for people to come together for the first MC egg drop.
I appreciate it, Chief.
Very good, Chief.
All right.
Is that
Thank
on our
you, sir.
Facebook?
It should be. We've got it on the city Facebook. We have it on the fire department Facebook. I know we've pushed it a couple times.
I've seen
It's
it going
actually on
out.
It's on the
I
city
haven't been on
website as
Facebook,
well.
no.
So if you see it, tag it. I don't know anything about Facebook. I've got one of my captains that's in charge of that. So see it, tag it, push it, do whatever we need to do to get it out there. But it'll be a fun day.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. You'll turn that mic off for us. All right. I'm going to move one of our agenda items up, so we don't have people sitting here for a little bit. I'm going to move 7.8 up and go to 7.8, which is the Watson Way addition. Mike, did you have anything you needed to talk on that one?
Members, Mayor, and members of the council, the Planning and Zoning Commission at the last meeting recommended disapproval of this because the application fails to comply with the zoning regulations for that zoning district because the 4 out of the 9 lots don't have frontage on a public way that is 300 feet, and 300 feet in the 2.5, SF 2.5 requires 300 feet of frontage on a public way. The applicant, in this case, is talking about having private streets, and those are still public ways, whether they're easements, streets, public, private. If we can get a fire truck in there, it's a public way, and that's what this is. Second thing was, he's got cul-de-sac, 2 streets that are basically ending with cul-de-sacs. Now, this is a little bit dicey. Our subdivision regulations need to be rewritten, because there are 3 places in the subdivision regulations where cul-de-sacs are discussed, and each one of those has either a different diameter or radius for the actual cul-de-sac, or the length of a cul-de-sac is suspect. The one I use, which is the one that's in the design manual, which is part of our subdivision regulations, says that if you have a dead-end street that's cul-de-sac, that's more than 600 feet long, you can't have it. You can't have it. Now, I ran that by the chief, and the chief thought it was okay because he could get his vehicles turned around, but that's not what the code says. The code says 600 feet. So the other thing that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended disapproval for was the fact that one of the cul-de-sacs was longer than 600 feet. So 1,004 feet is the length. For your edification, I've actually corresponded with the builder on this a couple of times and given him some guidance on how he can solve both of the issues. It's a redesign. It requires a redesign, but haven't had any response back on that. This is a ministerial function. You have 3 choices. You can approve it with conditions, or you can disapprove it. If you disapprove it, you have to say why. And if you decide to disapprove it, the Planning and Zoning Commission gave you 2 conditions that were the reasons for disapproval. What happens with a disapproval is that the applicant can take as much time as they want and redesign it and bring it back. And they don't have to wait a year. Just can bring it back. They redesign it. They can't bring it back the same, but if they redesign it and bring it back tomorrow, I'll schedule it for review by Planning and Zoning, and you'll see it again. And I suspect that irrespective of the action that you take here, if it's for disapproval, they'll probably redesign it and bring it back. So I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have. If you read any of the email strings, you can see that we've been dealing with this for a long time, at least since last August.
One question, when you use the subdivision regulation, do you use the same standard for review that you do for every other plat that you're reviewing? So do you use that, the area that you mentioned, the section you mentioned?
It's the same standard every time.
Okay.
Dan, do you have any questions?
No.
I'll entertain a motion either to approve or disapprove.
I make a motion to disapprove the preliminary plat for the Watson Way addition based.
Sure.
Sure. We'll let you come up here and explain. Normally, we would ask you to do things during citizens' comments, but no,
fine.
go ahead. That's fine. That's fine. If you'll push the button so the mic's on. And then if you'll give us your name and your address, even though I know we're on this specific thing, but it's for a matter to record on the recording.
Great, it's already done. I apologize. I was
No,
not
you're
aware
fine.
of
You're
that
fine.
previous requirement. So my name is Brian Watson, and my wife, Brooke Watson. We're live at 1401 Wells Circle, not too far from here. We're from Rockwall, born and raised, K through 12. I graduated class of 93. She graduated class of 95. Deep ties to this community. I just made my architect and attorney available because I didn't know if the council was going to have questions or not. I wasn't really sure of the format. I sent an email appealing the Planning and Zoning Commission's decision last week. And I apologize for not attending that meeting. I wasn't aware that there was an issue until midday last Tuesday, and then we thought it was a small issue, and then Thursday we found out that it was a major issue, and I was already committed to a previous engagement, or else I definitely would have been there. My wife and I have been extremely blessed in our business ventures, and we own about $80 million in property, residential, commercial, across in business across North Texas and Oklahoma. God has blessed me greatly. And so I've had the opportunity to come before the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, river dam authorities, various planning and zoning committees and boards such as yourself, never in my hometown, but city councils in other parts of Texas and Oklahoma. And so I'm a little bit familiar with the process. And each process in each town is a little different, so I apologize about not knowing the specific process here. The interpretation of this code is a little different than anything I have seen before. The tract of land, I just want to make sure you guys know, is the 27 acres at 1139 and 550. At the Planning and Zoning Commission, someone was talking about Rochelle Road. I just want to make sure that you guys know the tract of land that we were talking about. I purchased this land because I'm building a family neighborhood there. And I knew it was 2.5 acre single family housing when I bought it, and I knew the depth and width when we bought it. And I didn't want to put multi-million-dollar homes on 1 acre lots. And so I was pretty happy that it was 2.5 acre lots and it was designed the way it was. Essentially, all the ancillary issues that were brought up by Mr. Coker and some were brought up last week at the Planning and Zoning Commission related to the letter from the Water Department, the HNOA docs. There was some engineer put Rockwall instead of McLendon-Chisholm on the documents. We've gotten all those ancillary issues fixed, and anything that wasn't fixed yesterday we have on us tonight. But I just want to speak to these two issues that Mr. Coker just brought up. The first being the road length. He has the correct section, 10.0206, and he talks about the dead-end street cul-de-sac ordinance that governs this issue. And that ordinance states that the maximum length of the dead-end street with a permanent turnaround or cul-de-sac with a permanent turnaround shall be 600 feet. Now, the neighborhood design that went before planning and zoning, which I have oversized copies here if anyone would like to see, has two streets in this neighborhood. They are both less than 600 feet, and they are both dead-end cul-de-sac streets. Mr. Coker, in his analysis, is combining the street lengths. The code doesn't call for that. So both streets comply with section 10.0206, and he references the code being confusing in this area, and he referenced the Rockwall County Code last Thursday night. And there's also sections of the McLendon-Chisholm Code that talk about cul-de-sacs could be up to 2,000 feet from the closest intersection. So this code is confusing. The engineering firm that I hired out of Garland addressed this with Mr. Coker. So did my architect. We have emails back and forth. When we met right here in this room on August 12th, he said that that requirement was exclusive of the new oversized cul-de-sacs that we would have to install to accommodate the new larger fire trucks that we had. And so we designed this and went back and forth for 4 months between August and December and sent Mr. Coker the final draft because there was great debate about this one entrance versus two entrance issue, which Mr. Coker responded to the attached to the email with the attachments of the final design with, I spoke with the fire chief and you're good to go. Now, he didn't seem too concerned Thursday about this road length issue, and it is confusing, and I believe we comply with it. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I am very concerned about the interpretation that has been put before the Planning and Zoning Committee and before this council as it relates to lot frontage. Section 14 of the code that he refers to as SF 2.5, which is single family housing 2.5, is clearly used to make sure that our lots are in compliance with the 2.5 acre lot minimums. And that's what that section is designed for. And it talks about lot width, it talks about lot length, it talks about the setbacks for the front yard and the side yards. I've actually appeared before our Planning and Zoning Committee on that issue on my current residence. And what he has done here is he has taken a hypothetical, theoretical example that depicts a version of a hypothetical lot for the purposes of illustration. And this illustration which would it be okay if I showed the council what I was talking about?
While you're doing that, may I ask a question?
Yes.
You stated this is going to be your family area.
Correct.
Why wouldn't you want to do it the right way then, if it's for your family?
I am 100% doing it the right way. Everything that we have designed is within the code.
Then why would he knows the code better than anybody, Mr. Coker does, and you're picking and choosing?
I'm not picking and choosing anything. We have designed this exactly to code. We have emails back and forth for months. We have OKs, and I've hired engineers. We have designed this exactly to code. And if you see the illustration that he blew up and left the language that he left out of this section 14, he is using section 14, a section that is meant to make sure that we require with lot sizing, and he is using it as section 10, neighborhood design subdivision section.
As he stated, that some of our regulations do need to be looked over. We are just starting to look over our comprehensive plan, which we just got finished, and we do need to go and start looking at our regulation stuff. So with that being said, if he's been going by a certain rule in, of all the ones that are on our regulations, we need to keep going by that. And if you're picking and choosing, if there's 3 different rules, you can't just pick and choose from those 3 different rules which ones you like.
I'm not picking and choosing from rules. Section 14 governs lot size. Section 10 of the code governs subdivision development. And he is using section 14 to claim that every subdivision must be designed with 300 foot of street frontage, and that is not the case. That is not the case in the code. It's not the case anywhere. You live in neighborhoods now that do not have 300 feet of street frontage in front of their homes. And his interpretation would be that every single builder, architect, engineer that applies for this city would have to go through PUD or variance. And that's not the way the codes work. The codes are a base code. If you can comply with the code, then you can build according to the code. If you cannot comply with the code, then you have to go through PUD or variance. I do not have to go through PUD or variance because my streets are within the limits of the code and my lot sizing is perfect according to the code.
So then why did P&Z suggest?
Because I wasn't aware until the 11th hour, until the day of, after having approval via email saying you are good to go for months since December 13th.
Your good to go was for the entrance,
Correct.
as I read that. It wasn't for the cul-de-sac or the 300-foot frontage.
So the entire discussion from August to December was about, do we need a one entrance, double wide entrance, or do we need a different version?
And was that mentioned, that was not something that was the reason that you did not get your plat approved? It wasn't that issue. It was the other 2 issues.
The issue of a double entrance or the issue of a single entrance would have eliminated all those issues. So on December 13th, the answer was, you're not good to go. You have to have a double entrance, which will eliminate your cul-de-sac requirement and your frontage requirement. The frontage requirement is made up. It does not exist.
I would suggest I would like to hear Mr. Coker answer that question.
Well, and that's great. I really would too. Can I just finish this one? It's a 3-minute explanation, which I think will at least allow you.
It's just unfortunate you weren't at P&Z because they're the ones that are the nitty-gritty on this issue. So
we have to. I mean, they're there. P&Z is there for a reason.
I agree.
And
so, I mean, it is kind of important to keep up with what they need you to do.
And I think that, you know, we were all thrown by the fact that, I mean, I kind of stopped reading when everything said the city of Rockwall, because when I saw that glaring error, I was really then concerned about the preliminary plat in general. Because
Sure,
if there's no attention to detail about that issue, where is the other inattention to detail?
Yeah, and the surveyor mixed the county and the city up there, and I apologize once again for that. And we have since corrected that. I'm not expecting the city council to go against planning and zoning today. It is very important that you understand the next 4 minutes that I explained to you. And then
Please,
after that,
please.
And after that, I really appreciate your time. I know you guys are busy.
Is what you're looking for new, or is it something we've already received that we can pull up on our computer?
You won't be able to pull this up on your computer because Mr. Coker only gave you the illustration. He didn't give you the code.
Okay.
So what I have here is just Chapter 14 of the code, which he is using to claim that all neighborhoods must have 300 foot of lot frontage. May I approach and deliver this? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
In Mr. Coker's presentation before the Planning and Zoning Commission last Thursday, and in his assertions today, and this is all backed up by what he gave the council, he has blown up in size this middle picture here, this middle illustration. You will find it. And his claim is that this 300 feet of frontage access, which says street right-of-way, requires the city of McLendon-Chisholm to design all neighborhoods with 300 foot of street access.
That are single-family 2.5.
Yes, that is correct. And
That's not the case for other size lots.
Well, actually, it's the case for some of them, and it's the case for not. Single-family 5, single-family 1 have similar illustrations, but they'll have different lot requirements. So they'll have smaller lots, smaller frontages, and so on.
But that you are on a single-family 2.5 zoning
This is
district
correct.
area.
Yes.
Which is a 300-foot minimum lot width.
That's what this illustration says on the bottom
Yeah.
here. So if you will just look at this Chapter 14 zoning exhibit with everything in full, not just the illustration, this section talks about what this requirement is for, specifically Section C, area requirements. The requirements regulating the minimum lot size, yard size, building height, lot coverage, floor area as it pertains to this district. Now, it references these provisions provided in the area table, which is this bottom section here. There's a table here, and that basically says you have to have so much frontage, you have to have so much width, you have to have so much width, so much depth, and then it talks about the setbacks on the lots. So what has happened here is the creator of this code has given an illustration to give you a hypothetical example of what a lot should look like in width and depth. And if you'll look at the language here, it talks about width, it talks about depth, it talks about side yard, front yard setbacks internal to the lot. There is nothing in the language of this code that says street. There's nothing, the street is not in here, road is not in here, frontage is not in here. The only reason the street is listed on the example is because you don't know where the front yard is if you don't have a street. So you don't know if it's supposed to be a 75-foot setback or a 25. Same thing with the side streets. So these streets in this hypothetical example that are here are only here so that you can get the internal lot dimensions correct. This section of the code, Chapter 14, is only to make sure that our lot size is appropriate, which it is. Our lot sizes are way bigger than 300 foot across. They are way deeper than 200 foot. We have more than enough room to do the appropriate front yard and side yard. Mr. Coker has, after multiple times of being asked, has failed to give us the verbiage of the code that requires every single house in that section of our city to have 300 foot of road frontage. It is not here. He has taken an illustration that is a hypothetical example, and because it had a street so that you can do the application appropriately, he has blown that up and turned this into Section 10 subdivision ordinance. It is not a subdivision ordinance. This has nothing to do with the design of streets, cul-de-sacs, right-of-ways. The word road, street, right-of-way is nowhere to be found in here. This is, to be kind, a mischaracterization of this section. It is taken grossly out of context. This is a hypothetical example, never meant to do Section 10 work. So I don't really want to take any more time than that. I think, given that this was brought up at the 11th hour, given that we sat in this room with Mr. Coker, and I've hired many engineers and architects to go over this, and to come at the 11th hour with the closing table brinksmanship stuff, I mean, I'm in $1 million here. And I'll lose $1 million if I have to redo this. There's a lot of things that go on behind just getting everything to the city council. All those same engineering drawings, architectural drawings go to RCH, they go to Encore, they go to Atmos, and every month that this delays, banks raise interest rates. I mean, $1 million isn't going to break my family, but the costs continue to add up month after month after month. And when I see something as malicious as this, to take this out of context, blow it up from a section that he should know does not govern streets, and then to claim that every home should have 300 foot of street access it's a gross misrepresentation. So we comply with all the codes. We do not have to apply for PUD. We should not have to apply for variance. We have designed this the correct way, the right way, and I would be real curious as to why Mr. Coker didn't put this language in his report and didn't tell you and the Planning and Zoning Commission that this was an illustration for example purposes on a hypothetical lot, and that this street right-of-way language is not in the code. It's just a depiction of a picture so that people can learn how to do setbacks properly. That's it. It's nothing to do with neighborhood design or subdivision design. That is exclusively in Section 10 and limited to Section 10. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, sir. Would you push that button to turn that off for us?
Yes.
Steve? Thank you.
I mean, I would really like to hear from Michael
Yeah,
because
and that's fine.
I think there's some clarification needed, and I've never known you to act maliciously, so I really need to understand where the breakdown in communication has occurred.
Well, breakdown in communication. I have been working with these folks, not Brian and his wife, but Stephen Smith, since August. And it wasn't until the final application came through that I actually sat down and reviewed it against both the subdivision regulations and the zoning regulations. Because for those properties that are within the city limits, when we do a plat, we're obligated to make sure that the plat conforms with the zoning requirements. Now, the exhibit that I put in the report, and that is part of the code, here it is on the code page. As far as I'm concerned, and have been, I've been city planner here for 10 years. I've sent probably 50 or 60 families to the Board of Adjustment because they didn't have 300 feet of street frontage. 300 feet of street frontage. This is not an illustration or only exhibiting where the setbacks is. This is an illustration that's telling me, and I've told everybody that I've dealt with, that it says 300 feet of street frontage. That's what it says. Yeah, actually, it says right there. So this is part of the code. It's not just something that somebody stuck in here because they thought it was a good example, because the little chart down to the left tells you about the setbacks and the width and the depth. But this little exhibit is an exhibit that's part of the code. And I've been using it for 10 years, and my predecessor, Dan Boutwell, used it before me. to have people go to the code. Now, there are subdivisions in the city, lots of them, that don't have 300 feet of frontage. They're all in planned development districts, or they've all gotten variances. And I'm not malicious. I have seen the bottom of the bus many times.
So
Okay?
when you meet with these developers, do you take notes and then provide those to the developer so that there's no misperception of what you are saying?
Well, in this case, I think there may have been a misperception, because I did send one of the drafts early on to the fire chief, because I wanted him to take a look at it, see if the length of the cul-de-sac was going to work for him and the width of the easement. And he reviewed it for me, and he said it was fine. When he told me it was fine, I sent an email to Stephen Smith and said, it looks fine. But that was before I sat down and compared what they were proposing, because when you get down in those cul-de-sacs and there are easements, and they don't have 300 feet of frontage, that doesn't comply with the zoning regulations. And the zoning, you have to take both of them together. Article 10, which is subdivision regulations, and Article 14, zoning. Now, zoning doesn't apply outside the city limits. So we don't do zoning in UTJ, but we make a comparison every time. This exhibit that he's concerned about is a graphic representation of what we expect for a regular lot in a 2.5 subdivision. That's what we expect.
You know, it seems historically that this has been applied, and so I would ask at this point, Mr. Hollow, can you maybe add to anything here that would allow us to get some kind of resolution? I mean, how do we approach this in terms of... Mm-hmm.
And what I'm hearing from the applicant is that he has a disagreement whether it applies or whether it should be in the subdivision regulations. That may or may not be true, but the bottom line is it's in our subdivision regulations right now. I don't care if it should be or shouldn't be there. It's in the ordinance right now. We have to, you have to, as a legislative body, apply the law that we have now. Doesn't mean at some point later on we can't come and clear some things up or do anything like this or that. But at certain times, you rely on your professionals, me, Mr. Coker, when things don't exactly fit on top, but the law or the planning regulations are close, but they're not there, give an opinion how, if it was laid on top, how would that go? I have a very big problem is if something's in our subdivision ordinance, it's in our subdivision ordinance. Now, it doesn't mean that 6 months down the line, again, that we can't revisit and go, oh, you know what, that doesn't need to be there. Right now, as of today, March 23rd, 2022, it's in our subdivision ordinance, and you have only two responsibilities. You have a shall on both of them. If it complies with our subdivision ordinance, you must approve the plat. If it does not comply with our subdivision ordinance, is what I'm hearing, you are not permitted and you shall not approve the plat. Very few times does the law make things clear. But here it's clear. If it does, and you have a right to rely upon your planner and his opinion on the subdivision ordinance, and if it does, you have to approve. If it does not, you shall disapprove.
Gotcha.
Fair enough. Any other questions?
I guess.
Thanks, Mike.
What was stated, just as a clarification, is it doesn't spell out 300 feet is required, it shows it in the demonstration. Is that really the finding? And that's really the theoretical question, right? Or the argument is that really a binding?
Well, I have one more thing I can add too. Here's the thing, why personally, in my opinion, I'm not really swayed by hypothetical arguments. Well, hypothetically, it is hypothetically. The point is, if you approve the plat with a hypothetical, then hypothetically, they could do something that you don't want them to do. So my advice is always hypotheticals. If they can hypothetically violate the subdivision ordinance, no matter what they said, no matter what they put, why put yourself in that position? That does not comply with the subdivision ordinance. The point is, hey, as you platted it, the way it looks, what is it? That's what you have to look at, not hypotheticals. The way that it is right now, the way that it's submitted, yes, it complies, or no, it does not.
No, because I want to finish this. All right, council, what we have here is, we've got this on the agenda. Mr. Coker has recommended it not be approved. P and Z has looked at it and recommended it not be approved. We've heard from Mr. Watson. We've heard from Mr. Coker. Okay? We have a motion that was started, before we allowed Mr. Watson to speak. We have a motion to disapprove. Is that correct? I know you didn't finish it.
Correct. I would make a motion to disapprove based on the two conditions specified by planning and zoning, including the lack of 30-foot linear frontage and the cul-de-sac longer than 6 feet.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second. All right. Discussion, council? If not,
I would just like to say that there's got to be some kind of, not necessarily compromise, but we have our rulings in terms of plats and the overall designs that, for subdivisions that exist. And I'm trying to read into what Mr. Watson's saying in terms of his interpretation, but it seems pretty evident, at least to the folks up here, I think, myself anyways, that you're going to have to abide by the platting. And I understand that you disagree with it, but you haven't convinced me of the interpretation that you're trying to make. That what you're trying to do, and it varies from this, or it doesn't compose to this. I've been lost in what you're trying to present, and so you just weren't convincing. So as a result, I'll end up voting no.
well, the thing is,
I understand the hardship. I'm sorry. I understand the hardship and the duress you're going through.
and I appreciate you coming up and speaking.
You know, and the due diligence you're trying to attain here, and you know,
But we're
the
in a
backup.
position, guys, where, we can't, using the word compromise, I get what your meaning is, but Michael made the very good point. If it's in there now, it's in there. If we decide later down the road and we revisit and look at these different things, and they need to be adjusted or changed, whatever the case is, then that happens at that point. But right now, if it's in there that way, if we make a decision to compromise now, then anybody out there is going to come in here and go, what about mine? What about mine? What about mine? And it never ends. It opens up Pandora's box. We have to work with what is in place today.
Mayor,
Yes,
may
ma'am.
I ask Michael, Mr.
Absolutely,
Coker
you
something? Mr. Coker, so should we deny this for right now? What is the next step for them? Like, what do they have to do to come back with what is on our ordinances and stuff?
If the council were to disapprove this based on the recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Commission, the applicant would have an unrestricted amount of time to redesign the subdivision to comply with the regulations that it doesn't comply with today.
Okay.
So basically those two things. It has to have the 300 feet of street frontage, and street, in my report, street is a very loose definition. It can be a easement like this one is. It can be dedicated roadway. It can be lots of stuff. They would have to redesign and comply.
But they'll have as much time as they need to get it done. So
Yes,
they are not on a time limit or anything like that. What would be, is there another option, or, I mean, if we deny, I thought you said there was 3 different, if we deny it, if we deny it with terms or
Okay,
something like that?
There's 3 things you can do. You can approve it, you can approve with conditions, or you can disapprove it. And if you disapprove it, you have to say why you disapprove it, what section of the code it didn't comply with.
Okay.
That's what the state did to us a couple of years, 2 sessions ago.
Okay.
So, did I answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. If there's not any further discussion, we have a motion on the table to deny All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, okay. Show that unanimous for disapproval. All right. And Mr. Yes, sir, thank you so much for coming up and talking to me. Moving on to, I believe it's 7.3, discussion, institution of a neighborhood HOA liaison program, provide an opportunity for community outreach. I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Kipphut. Okay.
This initiative was basically something I wanted to talk about because we mentioned it at our offsite about ways to improve our interaction with the communities out there. So what I was thinking about was trying to enhance our crosstalk, not between us and council, but even between the various subdivisions. So, you know, Quail Creek talking to Chisholm Crossing, talking to Sonoma Verde. And I think it would be great if the city could serve as the focal point and the organizer, but by no means would be the people that would direct the flow of the conversation or anything like that. So I would like to probably start with quarterly meetings if these communities would be interested, and it would be open, it would be informal, and it would be drafted by the city but have input from the neighborhoods. There would be no policy decisions, there'd be no walking quorums, there would be no notes published. There would be notes published, and we would just email it to the neighborhoods. But it would help with Chief and his trying to start his neighborhood watch programs. So I just wanted to talk to council to see if you were interested in pursuing something like this, and if so, is there somebody specific that really wants to do it, that has it as something that they're really interested in organizing, or I guess that would be me that would do it. And there is the slide. Thank you. So I didn't know. I wanted to get community input.
You know
Or
what?
not, I wanted to get council input.
I'll give you my opinion on it. I think we need to be able to have somebody that can act, for whatever the right word is, middleman, you know, in between, go between, whatever.
Median.
To where we can have better communications with the different HOAs within the city. How we get to that point, I don't have the answer. You came up with a great idea. Jim, did you have?
Put your mic on.
A lot there. All right, now we're good. We're talking about starting up the Neighborhood Watch program and just recently got a list of all the HOA members or the HOA presidents, and we're going to start reaching out. Spoke with Deputy Stefankowitz, we'll be partnering together. So I don't know if this kind of coincides with what you've got going, and if you need to make a separate program, or the thought behind the Neighborhood Watch and the meetings would be inviting a council member or two to be able to come to give those citizens that opportunity outside of what we talk about when it comes
Right,
to
it's almost
public
a
safety.
two-prong approach.
Right.
Us going to them, and then all about them coming to us.
So in that, need some water. So that was my thoughts. That, you know, does council need to establish a separate program, or will we just combine that with the program that I'm looking to put together for the city, and to work with maybe Mayor Pro Tem Kipphut to be the council liaison for that side of it, to where you don't have a separate entity, we just do it all in one, because that's the goal. Is there's only so much safety topics and things like that we discuss, but it give an opportunity for different council members that can make it to come to those meetings.
I was just going to say, I like the concept of just organizing the HOAs and bringing them into a common community, so to speak, so you can present the Neighborhood Watch program. I'm starting to think maybe like a citywide rummage sale, just to popularize, you know, that kind of activity, because you draw other people coming into town. I'm sure there are other kinds of events that we could, you know, promo, tying in all the HOAs together. So it's just, I mean, it's unlimited in terms of what you can do with this, but the organization, the umbrella organization is what's important here.
I think once we get everybody's contact information, that's a start, and then we say, okay, what would you all be interested in doing? And, you know,
So that
So
would
we've got, what, 3 HOAs present here tonight, so I mean,
that I've
yeah,
got on the list,
so
so.
what
what's
do
else on
what
the
do
list?
y'all, well, I don't want to open that up. I'm just gonna go ahead and, contact, yeah, go ahead, Bev.
Come on up, Beth.
I'm Bev Stebbins from the Quail Creek HOA. And I'll just say, I was shocked to hear that you had a spring cleanup. I knew nothing about it. Shame on me, I might have missed it on the website, but that is the kind of thing that you can put out. Trudy has been very good at Christmas time, sending me the notice to have it put on our website. But if we knew about it, it could automatically be done. So those kind of things can also be added.
Let me ask you a question, Bev, because you've obviously worked with us here in various capacities, being on your HOA in your own neighborhood. An idea of having somebody that can come meet with your group, with your HOA and stuff like that. Your opinion on that, because you've served on both sides. What is your opinion? Do you think it's a good idea to keep that communication open?
Communication is always great, because I know in my neighborhood, there is always something that is brought up that nobody really knows the true 100% story to.
Exactly.
So I think it's great. You keep that communication line going, and we can alleviate a lot of problems. And you can also grow your events, Trudy, even though that's a lot more work for you. You can get more people involved in it because they will know about it. You know, we no longer really have a Rockwall paper that everybody gets like they used to back in the old days. Not everybody does social media. So there just needs to be a way that it can be, you guys can communicate what's going on, and we can communicate our concerns.
Right. Obviously, coming out to the HOAs will be on an ad hoc basis. But do you think quarterly is a good way to do it, or do you think we should do monthly?
I'd start with quarterly
Yeah.
and see if it's enough, just simply because our board meets monthly. And so if you throw one more in there, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but
Yeah.
So I think start quarterly and see how it works. And then if
Okay.
you see that maybe it needs to be every other month later on as things get going better, sure.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and send out the first email to everybody, and then wait and hear what y'all have to say.
The one thing I am going to caution everybody with, this is a great idea. I think the communication is needed in a case like this. But it's just like having a city web page with information on there. If we don't stay consistent in communicating with the HOAs, if we don't keep it up, then it becomes another eyesore, and people go, well, you know, they started this and now we don't ever hear from them. And it becomes a black eye, and we don't want that. If we're going to start it, you got to understand it's not here today and gone tomorrow, because that's how we lose people.
Right. But I
We
will,
have to keep up.
I will say that, like, whenever I do have any type of a event, I try to find, I know quite a few people, so I try to find at least one person in each neighborhood. And even if they're not on the HOA boards, I at least try to send it to them and go, can you get this to the right people? Now, whether it goes, where it goes from that point, I don't know. But I've tried to do that, and I would love, absolutely love, to have all neighborhoods know what we are trying to get out, because we're constantly, the first thing we think of is when we do have something going on, well, how do we let everybody know? And the thing, first thing that comes to everybody's mind is, well, social media. Well, I personally have kind of gotten off of Facebook just because of stuff. So, you know, it's not always the right way to do it. And you're missing not only that, but just because we're all hitting up HOAs, we're missing out tons of people that just live by themselves. So everybody knows somebody. I know at least a few people that have their own homes that don't live in HOAs. So then I can go, oh, I know this much. Let these people that own acreages or whatever in their own area, and let them know too. So I mean, that's what I try to do, and I'm hoping that it'll kind of ricochet and let everybody do that. But
I don't know.
I can't answer that one.
Yeah, but I don't know whatever.
Just because I want to get one more perspective on this, I think we're all going in the right direction. The individual doesn't necessarily live in an HOA, but he's a resident of our city. And just his perspective on it. Michael? on this idea. You don't specifically live in an HOA, but you understand the importance of communications. Do you have any input on it? Correct.
I think that's a really good point, because you can have all the good ideas, but if you
We
forget.
don't follow through, and
Yeah.
it's for nothing.
Well, I don't know why, I know you brought that up when we were doing the budget, and then I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Maybe you
that's-
could, in your last month here, see about
Well,
figuring that
again,
out.
this is where, and I'm not gonna be, try to be very critical, but this is where I think it's important that we put things on a calendar and say, we need
Yes.
to revisit this, or this needs to be, this is something that
30
was
days.
said, this is what we think is important. It either needs to go on a list to be able to say, we need to, I don't know, approach that in October, you know, but at least it needs to go, because, you know, it'll just it gets forgotten, things get forgotten.
Yep.
I'm a
Can we-
huge
Totally.
list and calendar person, so I'm
Shelley,
constantly
could you
pushing
put
that.
this back on the agenda, the second meeting in April, to readdress it and see where we're at?
Yes, sir, I can, but I would like to, I'm not sure that you all are aware that here at City Hall, we don't know any contacts for any of the HOAs.
And I think it's very, very important we get that.
Yeah,
All
so
the way
if we
around.
could get that information, we could help, you know, I think maybe reach out and let you
Well,
know
I
that
can forward
something's
you that
going.
email that I sent to Chief. So
Well,
it's-
and
it has a lot of
actually,
them
I'm
on
not
there.
sure if it's still on there or not, but on our website, we've got certain HOAs already on our website. Again, I don't know since we've changed over, but not all of them are on there. And I know, absolutely know, that some of the contacts have changed. But again, that's where you've got to keep that up also. There's more to it than just, you know, there's little legs everywhere,
Yeah,
so.
well,
and-
I'm specifically talking about the community outreach with the HOAs
But
to
the
deal
HOA
with
should-
HOA-like problems.
But the HOA should also have a member group, so they should also have emails, and
They
they
will.
should
Yeah.
have contact us that they could potentially share to this group, and we can communicate, which would be a great tool for all of us.
But also, we've got to remember that we do have turnover on council.
Yeah.
So we will need to make sure that this doesn't fall
Well,
through.
let's start with getting all the information, and then
Perfect.
we'll start working the technical side of how we
Dan
use that
has said that
information.
he would like to help me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll help Lorna with this.
Okay,
I think it's important.
all right. Let's move on to 7.4. Provide an update on the discussion between city staff and Kimley Horn in reference to the 60% design solution for State Highway 205 expansion and other road updates from the March 2022 Rockwall County Road Consortium meeting.
And we're
Rick
gonna.
and Lorna, you're up.
Right, and we're going to also combine this with item 7.7, provide an update from
Okay.
the road consortium. So,
Perfect.
you want me to take lead, Rick? Okay, so, there we go. The first item was we met with Kimley Horn to discuss developing the hardscape, which is basically the architectural design and the actual concrete for the 205-550 intersection. And Trudy did an amazing job of coming up with a draft concept with which Kimley Horn is working on, and they should probably have that drafted to us in the next couple of weeks, I think. But that is a focal point of our community, so we want that 205 and 550 to be something real nice. And we owe it to TxDOT to get that turned into them so they can incorporate the design, and that's something that we need to get done pretty quick. So once we get the design from Kimley Horn, we'll bring it back to council for their approval, and then forwarding it to TxDOT. Dan and I, Chief Simmons, Rick, and Sheriff Garrett, and our engineer met to discuss the 60% design solution, which is the 205 expansion, what it looks like, where the road cuts are, because it's going to have hard curbs and hard turn lanes. So we've looked at that design and came up with probably, I would say, a half dozen recommended changes. At the road consortium meeting last Wednesday, Mr. Polster, who is the contractor that the County of Rockwall has hired to coordinate our efforts with various road projects, said that they are, quote, pretty agreeable to what our input was, which is really good news, because we're we put in some road cuts where they hadn't done that. So hopefully that will really make it easier for our folks to get around. So that's that on that slide. And then the next slide, please.
Lorna, did you guys have any citizens come up and,
No.
and look at the?
No.
Put a quarter in the machine, it makes it work.
Talk nice to it?
You wouldn't think it'd be so hard, would you? Well, the next item continued was I wanted to go over a quick little update from the actual road consortium meeting. There we go, you had it.
There it is.
From the road consortium meeting, because it's things that were that are brand new. The most important for us is that we're going to be widening Horizon Road from Tubbs Road to 549 from 2 to 4 lanes. So that will be really great for our citizens for an alternate for 205. 548 is going to be widened from 66 to the future outer loop, which is a location to be determined, so that's a little nebulous. And then 551, this is very important to Fate, is going to be widened from 2-lane rural to 3 to 4 lanes. So those 3 projects were presented to the commissioners probably yesterday. I'm not sure, Rick, I didn't see the agenda.
I didn't see it either.
They have to issue an RFQ to do the preliminary engineering and environmental efforts to begin that effort to contract it out. So those 3 roads are going to be the first projects that we see. They're using old bond money from the 2008 road consortium bond, or the county road bond. They won't be using the new bond money. However, using that old money will help free up a little bit more money from the new bond. Can you do that next slide? I don't know if you've got it, the graphic. Okay. All right, so there was a graphic I had that is available that I will make sure is in the minutes. TxDOT is doing a ad campaign, obviously, because of the I-30 construction. And this is going to be done in a real-time manner. So the graphic has a little barcode at the bottom, or a QR code at the bottom, that you can go to the website and see where the actual traffic issues are. So they're trying to do automatic updates. Now, the action item for us, or in question, is the County of Rockwall has an information campaign going, and there are information officers in each city, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, that are meeting to make sure they figure out the best way to get out the word. So I didn't know if we wanted to have someone tasked from our staff as that information officer or what. So,
What kind of time is it going to be?
well, right now it's just an information. If we want to have somebody be on it, it's in the very beginning stages, so I don't know what the time is.
My concern is that I don't know if it's
I think it would be basically getting information and posting it to our website.
we can definitely consider it.
Now, you know, so many of our citizens, maybe I should say all, are going to be impacted by the I-30 project. I would encourage you to let's do participate in that, and I'll be happy to do that as long as I'm here to make sure that we have the same information and give that to our residents so they can have it available to them, like the rest of the folks in the county, because it's going to be, it's a long process.
So Shelley, that thing you're holding up that everybody has, that is what needs to get posted on our website, that actual graphic, because then you can link to the barcode. See the barcode in your left, the document in your left hand? Yeah, there's a barcode at the bottom. So if we could post that on our website and on our Facebook page, that would be wonderful.
It's in our staff report?
Apparently it is, yeah.
It's the link on 7.7.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, great. So Rick, I'll re-forward you that email because you weren't able to be at the meeting. So anyway, it's a moving target, 205 expansion. We don't know when it's going to start, when the construction is going to start. We don't even have the funds allocated for it yet. So it's going to happen. We just don't know when. From what Mr. Pulser has said to us, there's a chance we get funds that were earmarked for road construction projects in Houston or Austin, that we could potentially get money from those projects because they aren't as well planned as our projects, but we will just have to wait and see. Rick, do you have any insight on that?
No, I don't. Rockwall County has gotten a lot of money because of the fact that we've been united with the consortium and have done some preparatory work on all of the projects. So when it comes to the end of the day, sometimes other regions are, for lack of a better word, still fussing about what they want to do, and we're there with Rockwall County, and this county is there with, this is what we want to do, and furthermore, this is what we've already got prepared toward it. And we've gotten a lot of money that others weren't quite ready to take. Didn't mean we took their project away from them. It means we got it this year when we might not have, and they'll get some of theirs next year. But it's been it has resulted in a lot more state and federal money coming to our roadways because of the way Rockwall County and the cities in Rockwall County do business.
Anybody have any questions for me?
No, I checked out those links. One of them was a video.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, we can put those on our website, correct?
Yep.
Or-
Yeah.
Shelley's going to put them on. Thank you, Shelley.
All right, that's 7.4 and 7.7. Let's move to 7.5, consider setting a policy for financing any project or capital expenditure before council. Threshold amount, 25,000 would mandate policy protocol to be instituted and the council vote to be taken. Mr. Tucker, what's your idea on this?
This is something I've been thinking about for a considerable amount of time. I spoke to Lisa Palumba on this and wanted to bring it before the council. Really, when we start to debate an issue and we start applying numbers, monies to different projects, it seems to be a little amorphous to me. So I would really am looking, as we grow as a city, to formalize certain protocols where, in this example, if there's an item that comes up, particularly a capital expenditure, that we start to be required to follow certain procedures. And so, in particular, the capital expenditures or capital investments that are quite substantial. And the two that come to mind that we recently looked at were the sewer project and then the cost of the recent fire truck that we purchased. And so if you look at the sewer project, that cost the city $500,000 overall. And the fire truck cost us, I think, $400,000. So you're talking about $900,000 within the space of a year that the city basically paid cash for. Now, it came out of various funds, and we can debate about the truck itself, but it still cost the city $900,000. And you have to remember that our budget is only $2.4 million. And so I think there are, when you pay cash for large items like that, you lose what they call opportunity cost. And basically, you spend $900,000 on those items, it disallows you from going into any other venture where you could have had that money applied to some other project that you may have wanted. So that's called opportunity cost. I call it opportunity loss. Again, I'd like to set up some kind of protocol where we look at expending over maybe $25,000 or $50,000, whatever that may be. And so we can look at cash investment. We can pay for something with cash, as we did with these two items. We can look at loan financing through public or governmental loan finances, where you can get low rates, especially with government loans. Remember that with loans, you can stretch out the cost of a capital expenditure over a period of time, and as new taxpayers come on board, they're helping to defray the cost. When you pay cash up front, the onus of that expenditure is totally on the current taxpayer, and that disallows us from really maybe trying to raise taxes or because they'll be disgruntled just by the fact that we're spending money and maybe in an unwise fashion. So you look at cash, you look at loan finance, you can look at bonds, and in particular, one I'm thinking of is a bond for maybe the water projects that we've been considering in the takeover RCH. I mean, that's something that, and when you issue a bond, I mean, I'm not completely learned in the area, but you need to be paying back on the bond, and we have immediate customers if we did take over RCH through issuing a bond. So I think that's something to be considered. And then the last item in terms of financing projects is our grants. I mean, grants are everywhere out there, and I think we need to be more intelligent about grant applications. I think we need to contract with, there are various companies out there. I think it's SRG is one. I know that Public Management, Inc. is another one that have professional grant writers, and you'd be surprised by the kinds of monies that are available out there if you take the time in earnest to go ahead and investigate. I was at an economic development conference, I think it was last year, Lorna and I went down, and I was talking to a city manager who was running a city about the size of ours, and she submitted a grant and received $4 million. The cost of the grant was $68,000. And so the return on investment when it comes to grants is enormous. You just have to have somebody who has knowledge, a level of expertise in the area to assist you. And I think we need to be looking at our financing of these larger capital expenditures, like I said, in a different fashion. I think we need to bring on board the experts to help us with this, because even though I have a background in business, it's applicable to some of this. But the folks on this panel, I mean, we're really lay people when it comes to financing projects. Now, there's certain levels of expertise, and I'm not going to deny that. But, you know, if we want to purchase RCH, it's going to cost a lot of money, and I want an expert to help us guide us through that process. So
Here's what I'll recommend. As far as considering setting a policy tonight, I don't think that's a good idea. What I think is a good idea with council's approval is to give direction on this. I'm not going to deny that you have a good idea there, but I think between yourself and Rick, come up with more meat and potatoes to it, because I don't know that 25,000 is the right figure. You know, there's still some more homework that needs to be done in that before council makes a decision.
yeah, this is just,
But I think it's a great idea.
this is an initial proposal to bring up the idea that we need to be looking at this. We need to have something that's formalized. And no, I'm not ready to jump on this and you know, submit it for next week. But between Rick and I and maybe some other folks, if we want to engage with this, we can come up with something. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are other cities that have this kind of thing available, and be more cognizant of the fact that when we do spend our monies, that we spend it in a way that really we can stretch our monies out.
And I agree with you. We had a discussion very similar to this about, you know, like you brought up the fire engine. Fire engines in any city, that's a huge expense. You know, anywhere from $500,000 to over $1 million, depending on what kind of fire truck.
It's a 10-year life expectancy.
Correct.
And the sewer system has a 30-year.
So to space out the cost of it without killing us under a finance, sometimes it's going to be a wiser choice.
But sometimes spending the money is you don't pay
Absolutely.
interest.
And it's always
That's
open.
correct, right?
It's always open for
And those
debate.
went through budget review. We did go through all of that on both of those. I understand. I mean, it is a good point. We definitely.
Yeah, but the investment was made now. We spent the $500,000. The taxpayers are currently paying for it. That investment's not coming. That return on investment is not coming back for years. Literally years.
No, that's not true.
You show me where it's coming back on us.
Well, here's the thing, guys, and not
One
giving an
individual on
argument.
that line.
It was also brought up on that particular item that you talked about. The reason the council voted to put it in now is the farther along we get with 205 being built, the more expensive that's going to cost to do that same work. So it was do it now.
And I'm not
or pay
debating
more
the
later.
fact that we did now. I wanted
But
it to
it's
be done
one
now.
that-
It was a purpose. It really was a question of financing. That's what I was looking at.
I mean, I actually thought, when I read the agenda item, I thought you were talking about putting in ordinance, getting council approval for a specific threshold. That's what I thought you were talking about. You're speaking more philosophically, how we approach, how we do our strategic planning, that kind of thing.
And I think if we could bring back a, I think if we could bring back a proposed policy on this, to me it makes sense without trying to look back at the ones we've decided to pay cash on, or forward what we ought to be doing. But each time these things come up, let's look at them for what they are and look at what our options are. And I think we've got a really good resource in essence, our finance director, Ray Smith, who can look at those and say, this is the amount of what we're doing. It's got such and such. These are the options on how you could pay for it. You can pay cash. That means even if you pay something out of cash from a dedicated fund, it's going to end up being charged somewhere. So it's all the city's money, and it's all accounted for in the budgets and in the audit. So I think just to look at that each time, and we can see if 25,000 works for us, or if we need a different threshold on it. Right. But I think you can look at it and see the advantages of each of them. No interest is an advantage if you pay cash. A different group of taxpayers paying for it if you pay for it over a 4-year period. It's on one side of the tax rate if it's this, the other side of the tax rate if it's that. So if you look at that each time and get a recommendation from our financial professional, then I think you can still decide whether you take that recommendation or not. But I think on those major things, getting that recommendation, much as we did on the last one that we came through here with, I think perhaps you'd feel better about where we end up on all of them if you just look at each one of them and decide each one of them how you want to do it.
And as a chief, I mean, he didn't know that the insurance was correct. But chief does have a capital equipment replacement plan in effect for when he, in his mind, thinks he needs to replace equipment.
Right. Exactly. And I think if you look at Ray's recommendations on where to buy those, then where to pay for those, you also, though, need to know that those are going to be charged somewhere. So you're going to have a budget amendment that moves that amount of money out of that special fund into the general fund so you can charge it and also keep the records as they need to be. But absolutely, there's money there for people to use, and I think adding one more step to that would be good. You're still going to make all those decisions, but you're going to make them based on what the options are each time. You may decide after you've done a few of those, we don't ever want to do, 4-year notes. We don't ever want to do that. So take that off the list. Don't give us that option. Or you may say we want to pay cash every time, so we're spinning our wheels. But to me, it makes sense to bring these things up at least for a while and see how the council wants to deal with it.
So if you and Rick and whoever else needs to get involved, maybe, Ray with our finances, and bring us back more information on that idea. If you want to sit down and listen to it. 7.6, creation of a road maintenance fund. Consider a suggestion for city staff to identify all roads in McLendon-Chisholm by name, total mileage, which we would be responsible to maintain. These would also include roads possibly co-maintained with the county. If these exist, consider a review of maintenance costs past used to help predict future costs, and that a budget item be created to help start funding future maintenance. Mr. Tucker?
Yeah, on this, I'm not advocating that tonight we create a fund for road maintenance, but just to kind of open it up for discussion. So,
sure.
Because
I think it's a great idea. I think it's needed, whether it's we call it a line item within our budget specifically for that. The thing is, we've got a list of the roads we're responsible for that are city-owned roads that we have gotten from the county that are our responsibility through various things that we've found out.
But as far as total mileage, to be able to know the total mileage on those roads, to be able to know when they need to be maintained, or an idea of when the next time, that could be a costly venture, because to get those guys to put those little boxes in that little strip across the road, they're very expensive.
I'm just looking at quantifying cost per mile. I mean, that may be something that we need to have in order to make predictability in terms of how much money we're going to be donating on a yearly basis into the fund. So that's where that comes in.
Okay.
But, you know, we've, yeah, you're right. We've talked about road maintenance ad infinitum. It seems like it comes up for every other council meeting. And we've talked about Pullen, we've talked about Edwards, we've talked about Klutz, I think it is. And then the big one is obviously Sonoma Verde. And so the question is, as the city grows, you know, how do we look at road maintenance? And are all the roads in the various HOAs now, they are being maintained by the HOAs, but at some point, will we consider converting those to public roads? I don't know. I'm not advocating that. I'm not advocating that. I'm throwing this out as a possibility in the future. No, I am not advocating.
No.
Okay, here's the deal. Here's the thing. Is in Sonoma Verde, I know we have a maintenance fund for the roads down there, but those are publicly owned roads. So from a legal standpoint, is the city obligated, and Mr. Holland could probably testify to this, is the city obligated to take care of those roads?
Yes.
Because they are owned.
Yes.
Okay. And so is it fair for those folks to be taxed twice because?
Well, they're not being taxed twice. Here's kind of a Pig 101 in a very, very small amount of words. The PID tax is originally designed to pay for that infrastructure, whether it's the roads, sewer, electrical, all the infrastructure to get that subdivision up and running. That PID tax is to pay back what that cost was to do that.
That's right.
Is there a maintenance fee in there to help maintain it to a certain degree? Yes. But it's a city-owned road.
That they pay
it's part of the PID tax. It's built into that PID tax.
And it can only be used on roads in Sonoma Verde, and mostly for major catastrophic repairs. Maybe I shouldn't say catastrophic, but major repairs is what it's for. And that's, you know, those deposits have been made, it looks like to me, when bonds have been issued each time, which I think when this bond issue occurs, there'll be another deposit made into that. And I think the city has spent some money on that. I think there's already the kind of the makings of what we're talking about here in your budget process. I think where you have under capital improvements or whatever, you have things budgeted, and under those is where you got some roadway money. I will tell you that one of the first things that I told the council I wanted to do was to go in and look at all of these 7 or 8 major roadways and see what their condition is and what I thought the cost of it was going to be. And I'll have to confess to you that I haven't gotten that done yet. But I still do plan to get that done. And I think this is just sort of a re-emphasis of what we need to do with it, a little bit more of a request on how we might do it. You've also got a good start on this by every public road you've got in the city is on your books. Your accountant has booked that asset. It's booked and it's depreciated, and while it's a governmental account, it's a governmental fund and not an enterprise fund. They're all booked in the book. So, you know, you got some good starts on this. I think maybe to me this is just it's a suggestion that we might formalize it a little bit more, and we might spend some time on it and keep it in front of us, because as I look at the city, I think that's some of the major liabilities that the city is going to have in the future. You're to some extent so lucky that you have so many private roads that are otherwise maintained, but those that you have are usually long and not built like those inside the subdivisions that are private. So that's an upcoming liability for this city, and this and any other thing we can come up to help us get ready to face those, I think is a good thing worthy for us to read.
I mean, right now, the road repairs are in line item 700. But that's a general, broad category. Perhaps there's a way to extract that for the next budget cycle, to have road maintenance be a line item.
You can do that. You could even, even though you don't have employees, you could really, in a governmental accounting fund or a general fund, have a street and road department or street, road, and drainage department where you can see that and see those expenses and be able to see those a little bit better, which I think would be a fairly easy thing to do. It is a little bit difficult when you come in to figure out how you're going to do even a minor repair to a road. You have to, there's a good deal of learning to do. So with that, I think in the next budget you could make that change. You sure could.
Yeah, I would just like to see it more formalized and dedicate a line item for that in particular. And certainly, prior to you leaving, I'd like to talk to you about this and see what we can do in terms of getting some sense of what costs have been in the past couple of years, so we can predict monies that we may want to put into the fund to protect the budget, if nothing more.
Along with that, I don't know if it's a reach as far as the agenda goes. We had in the budget that we were going to do a road impact fee study. And that has probably not even hit your radar because...
I've heard that discussed, and I don't know how much was put in the budget to do it.
50,000.
How much?
50.
You might be able to do the study for that. I can get a hold of the people that do those and see if they want to give us proposals on those. That is a really specific state-regulated process, and before you can, well, I would need to talk to some of these guys that do this to see if you have a new subdivision come in and they're private roads, I don't know if you would extract that fee from them or not. I don't know that that would ever qualify. Whatever the total amount is, then the total liability that you think you're going to have for new roadways that you can put into the fee and calculate that, the legislature lets you charge half of that based on what you think your projections of growth are going to be in the future. It's something we ought to look at, and I have heard it discussed. I didn't know actually that it was in here, but I'd be happy to get a hold of some people that do those and see what they think about our situation.
Information on what their
We would be able to do that.
what their requirements and their costs would be. We'll look for that information for the next agenda item in the future. All right. Do we need to go into executive session on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. It is 8:22. We're going to move into executive session on 8.1, adjourn into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, to discuss sanitary sewer will serve letter for property generally located within the Trilogy development in the extraterritorial limits of the city of McLendon-Chisholm, Texas, and owned by MC Triology, Texas. We are now in executive session. Discussion in executive session was over the sanitary sewer will serve letter for property generally located within the Trilogy development in the extraterritorial limits of the city of McLendon-Chisholm and owned by MC Triology Texas LLC. I will entertain a motion on authorizing the city administrator to sign a sanitary sewer will serve letter. City administrator.
Sorry, I'd make a motion to, luckily I have my mic.
Yeah.
I make a motion to authorize the city administrator to sign the will serve letter for property general located within the Trilogy development and extraterritorial limits of the city of McLendon-Chisholm, Texas, and owned by MC Trilogy Texas LLC.
All right, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. If there's not any other discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Show that unanimous. All right, we've completed all that. Now it's updates, discussion, and direction to staff. I don't have any direction. We've already discussed whatever we needed to during agenda items as far as direction. Everybody remember that we're having the helicopter Easter egg drop April 9th. I don't know the exact time it starts, but 9 to 12. Sounds like it's going to be a really cool thing. Never seen somebody throw Easter eggs out of a helicopter, so that's going to be fun to watch. But we've got that coming up. Guys, we're getting to that point here in another month and a half. School's going to be out, so you might want to start prepping. Hopefully Mother Nature will stop what she keeps doing and it'll start getting warmer and dry out, and we can enjoy the outside a little bit more. Trudy, you got anything?
No.
Brian? Daniel? Yeah.
Has the city allocated any monies for that?
I don't think we have. I think that's all being funded through donations and with Sarah Naylor and her
You know,
Heart and Home and
Heart and Home?
Heart and Home.
would we be willing, or?
I don't know, because we have to be very careful on some of those things, on
Okay.
what the city can put money into.
Just wanted to ask.
Yes. Lorna, you got anything?
Nothing.
All right. If that's it, it is 8:43. We have met everything on the agenda tonight. Meeting adjourned. Shut this.